Joining me again, my guy Jared in the building. Didn't go anywhere. If you guys caught this last week, this was on the Patreon. So now you're all listening to this now. Jared, I wanted to talk to you about the AFC East because it's a division that's close to home as a Jets fan, which we also mentioned on the last episode that you'll always be rooting for the Jets.
I will, even though it pains me.
You can tell by the side.
It pains me. So I think if you asked me a team that tilts me the most, I think the Knicks are up there. I think the Knicks and the Jets would probably be my two. Like, in terms of when I watch them, I already expect the loss before the game is even over. I have very little positive energy for those teams. They've hurt me too many times, especially the Jets.
Yeah.
The Jets, since the butt fumble is the prime example. Because that's one of those situations where it's obviously a negative play for your football team, but it's a play that
is going to live forever. It's always, wasn't it like the not top 10?
On Thanksgiving Day, too.
Yeah.
Which made it even worse. Everyone was watching.
But when SportsCenter does the not top 10, I think it was on there for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
It was number one.
And again, I think it's a really hard sell when you have teams that hurt you like that to really get invested again personally. And we as gamblers are trained to remove emotion. So it's like I've created this natural wall for all teams, and the Jets and all of my teams, right? They have less emotional connection to me than ever before.
Ooh, okay. So this brings up a fascinating point and a question because I'm someone that bets against my team.
Okay.
If I know,
I bet against my team all the time.
So then how is there a bias? Like, how is that not any different than when you bet?
It means when I'm like watching, when I'm watching the game, and I see something, it'll stick in me longer than it will before. But it's really hard. I think the hardest thing to do, again, we've talked about this a lot. It's to remove emotion from your bets,
especially when it's your team. But I tell people all the time when I get asked how I feel about the Giants game or the Knicks or a friend of mine that fights in the UFC, I tell them, look, I'm gonna break it down for you the way I would if I didn't know them.
Yeah. And
I've used my buddy Jared Gordon, fights at 155 in the UFC. He's a slow starter out the gates. He's someone that the longer the fight goes, the better he bodes. But it's always very concerning in the first round. So I tell people, like, look, if he could get out that first round, it's going to look good. But in that first round, I'm going to be on the edge of the seat. I'm a little bit nervous. When the Giants played the Eagles in the playoffs, I told people, I'm like, look, I think the Giants either win this game or they lose by 40. They ended up losing by 30. And I bet the Eagles. I took the Eagles -7.
I think I don't think that's emotion. I think that's just being reasonable. Like I think you could have emotion for your team and love your team and just know this isn't a good matchup for us.
Right. But there's so many people.
Some people who can't. You're blinded by loyalty.
Yeah. Oh, plus 260, I got to take them.
Yeah, it's my team.
Yeah.
No, that's just reasonable. I don't think that's emotionally affected. I think that's just reason and logic. And that's all gambling is. Gambling is just a math equation. This is the price. This is where I price it. What's the difference? Is it more or is it less? That's all gambling is. It's like going to the gas station and finding the gas, it's cheapest gas. Well, this over here is minus this, and this over here is this. Well, that price is fair. That's not. Let's go there.
Let's go there, yeah.
I mean, that's all gambling is.
Gotta shop the lines, yeah.
Or just shopping the line in your head. Like where you you have to set your own line. Even if you don't have like a fancy rating, you still have to set the line. It can be an arbitrary one, like just a random number. Like, I think this is a coin flip. Well, it's plus 110. Well, you're getting good odds then if you think it's a coin flip and you're getting plus 110.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you had a video that you posted a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month now, where you were talking about value.
Oh, yeah, the Bryce Young stuff.
I think value also can be played into that. If you're making your own ratings or your own point spreads in your head, and you're saying to yourself, like, oh, I think this team should be a 3-point underdog, and then you look at the line and they're a 6-point underdog, that would be an example of some value there.
I agree.
But some people, like you said, your video was so good, man, because I have to show it love and repost it, where people only want to see plus 800. That's value. It's like
minus 1,000 could be good value. The Bryce Young thing is the classic example of value. I think it was the morning that the Will Levis Reddit thing broke.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, Bryce Young was like minus 400 to be taken first.
Yeah, and he was like minus 3,000 like 48 hours before.
And again, it's just a math equation. Minus 400 equals I think it's 75% or 80%. The math in my head, I think it's 80%. Yeah, 300 is 75%. Minus 400 is 80%. So that means in 8 out of 10 scenarios, that's what the sportsbook is saying Bryce Young goes first overall. Well, it's 10 out of 10. I mean, or at worst, 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
There's your value right there. It's math. It's not rocket science, people. It's literally addition, subtraction, division, multiplication.
Hey man, people you know how people are nowadays. They want things to be difficult, even if
or
it's
they
so
want
simple.
it to be minus, plus a 10,000.
Yeah.
$10 to win 1,000. Well, yeah, that's value. Well, no.
No, not really. Not really.
Because the true odds of it are probably like plus $1 million.
Seriously. Well, Leicester City was
That's a great example of it.
Because of them, a lot of sports books, they don't offer more than 2,000 to 1 odds for someone to win. Because they had it at 5,000 to 1. They go on. I think it's the greatest underdog story of all time.
Yeah, I think the Heat might have been if they would have won it. They didn't win it, right?
Heat's a good one too. But what's
Recent.
interesting? Yeah. But
Leicester City. This was like 10 years ago now. This was like
it's coming up. Yeah, and they just got relegated too in the Prem. But what's so fascinating about that one, and people will say like Buster Douglas or Holly Holm.
Yeah, those are good ones too. But those are one-punch knockouts.
And those are also
Leicester City's. It was like 6 months. Of just
that's
winning.
Exactly it. It was an 8.
That's why Miami, because it was a 2-month postseason.
Yeah, it's more impressive that way.
It's more impressive when it's not just one punch.
Exactly.
Or one game. That's why the NFL, to me, the upsets are not that impactful. They play 4 games in the playoffs. That's it. That's not even a series in most NBA or NHL.
Dude, you're talking to someone that saw his team win 2 Super Bowls, and they were nowhere near the best team that year in both of those years.
That is the classic argument for any NFL versus other sports debate.
Yeah, 100%.
That would never happen in the NBA.
It don't happen in the NBA. It don't happen in any other sport.
Other than maybe college basketball.
Yeah.
And even in college basketball, usually the Final Four is that moment. And then they fall.
Yeah.
Because the Final Four is that collection of great teams. It's very hard to go like George Mason, VCU, those Final Four.
That's why they also stand out.
Yes.
You have that happen.
Very rare do you get a Villanova from 85, which was just like, what? Especially with the teams in their conference that year. I mean, who they had to beat.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
The road, yeah.
And NC State's another one, too. Considering having to face Virginia and Sampson, who was like the best college player in the history of that little time period. NC State had to beat him 3 times.
But I think that's what's the big appeal with the NFL and college sports, too. Well, college basketball, I should say, because it's urgency.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have it that day or else
that's why
it's
the
a
NFL
wrap.
is so great, worst to first.
Yeah.
That's why I think that's why the NFL is the most exciting sport.
Yep.
I really do believe. I don't think it's the most exciting postseason. I think the postseason can be rather, dull sometimes, especially the early round games. I think the hockey postseason's better, but the NFL regular season, it's the best regular season.
Yeah, there's one game a week.
Yeah, best regular season in sports.
Yeah, without a doubt. The AFC East, what would you say your feelings are for this division? Try your best. I know we were talking about biases and emotion, but
I'm good at making logical observations about my team.
now, do you think this division is compelling to someone in like Seattle, right? Like, is this a division that to the people that are not invested in these teams, and we know that the NFL is massive, right, across the country, like it's big everywhere, but from a interest standpoint, where would you put this division as far as being like one that's going to be interesting this year?
I think it's not at the top, but I think it's up there. I think the NFC East, because of the teams in the division, Cowboys especially, always draws a lot of attention. Jerry Jones always draws a lot of national attention. I think the NFC West, the Niners, are another one of those teams that always draw a lot of national attention. I think the AFC West, because of the quarterbacks, will draw a lot of national attention this year. But you go from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. All right. Well, now that division seems pretty impactful to me too. I think the Bills are an interesting team, small market team, but very much the core of that city.
I went to school up there. I'm
it-
well aware
it
about how much they
is
love the Bills.
culture.
Yeah.
I mean, they have guys flying through tables. They have like the mustard and ketchup guy, right? It's like it's weird. It's
Bills Mafia, man.
yeah, exactly.
They love it.
So, but nationally,
Yeah.
Josh Allen helps. Madden cover
Oh,
helps.
it helps drastically. Yeah.
That changes. So again, I think the NFL, if you want to talk about national appeal, quarterback, you rank the quarterbacks in each division.
Yeah.
I think the AFC East is up there. I think they're in the top half of the NFL.
I would agree. You have 3 quarterbacks that are
Prime time type quarterbacks
prime time and also
that you would pay to see in prime time.
yeah, and when
can put
they're
on the
healthy, and they're
Oh,
on.
yeah. The health is everything
Yeah.
in the NFL. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Niners last year. What happens
that
if
was
Brock
rough.
Purdy doesn't get hurt in that championship?
Yeah, if he could just grip a football.
Health is everything in the NFL.
Yeah, without a doubt. But that division, so you look at Tua, Rodgers, and Allen.
Yeah.
Mac Jones, I've never been a Mac
No.
Jones guy. From
I
the
think a lot
beginning.
of people are down on the Pats, but now we hear DeAndre Hopkins.
Why would he go there?
Bill O'Brien, maybe they kiss and made up. I don't know. They hate Bill O'Brien traded him.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? We don't know the full story there. Could have been from above. He could have loved O'Brien and just circumstances they had to trade him. We judge a lot of what we see in social media. Social media is fake life.
Yeah. Even Stephon Diggs earlier this week.
What's going on there? No
Yeah.
idea.
No one knows. Yeah.
So for me to judge, like people are like, oh, well, he hate that because I've been on a million shows already. Where's DeAndre Hopkins going to go? Every time I say the Patriots because they had the most money and the biggest need, it was like, Bill O'Brien. We don't know what happened there.
Oh, look, it's been
Were
a
you in
couple
the
of
locker
years
room?
now.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's been what, 6 years?
Yeah.
I have no. Maybe the Patriots offer him the most money, or among the most money. And if you were getting 3 contracts, Cleveland, Houston, New England, which coach do you want to play for? To the twilight of my career,
Right.
to try to milk the most out of what I've got left.
Well, I think that's also the conversation around a guy like him and just in general is what do you want at this point of your career?
He wants a Super Bowl, but he wants to get paid, and he wants to be on a team that has a chance to compete and that has a winning mentality.
And you think New England could be that?
Well, I think New England has the culture, and I
Yeah.
think it has the money.
Yeah.
They were very well under the cap. The fit is there. He's going to be the number 1 receiver on that team.
Yeah.
He's a star. Cleveland, you're kind of the star. Houston, you are, but the culture, the fit, the winning, not there. New England's kind of the only one that has all 3 randomly. Maybe they're not expected this year to win, but they have a winning culture. They have the money, and he's desperate need. It made sense. It checked all the boxes. The only thing it didn't check was, does he get along with Bill O'Brien?
Right.
Which we don't know. Are you in his text DMs? You seeing what their text? Maybe he loved Bill. I mean, I know that the news wasn't good there at the end, but you just don't know about the inner workings. We were not there.
Yeah, it's fair. It's a fair assessment. And also, it's been so long now. Like, time heals
It's been a
wounds.
long
It's been a while. Yeah, and look, he went
long
to Arizona and he was making $30 million a year. He was the first $30 million wide receiver.
And he had some highlight plays.
Yeah.
He had some moments where you're like, this guy's the best player in the league.
Yeah.
But consistency, health, right? Always the things. But to your point, I think New England is this year an afterthought in the division. It would be a big surprise. I don't have the odds in front of me, but I'm assuming they're the longest shot.
Yeah.
It would be a surprise if New England won the division.
The
If I had to
Patriots are
rank,
plus 750. They have the longest odds.
probably Bills, Jets, Dolphins. The Jets, Dolphins probably pretty tight, and then Pats,
Yeah,
right?
so division odds, you got Buffalo at plus 130. You have Miami at plus 290. You got the Jets at plus 250.
So
And then you
right
got
around.
the Pats at plus 750.
I bet you probably could get very good numbers on the Jets and the Dolphins, better than those numbers, and have a nice little chunk of a preseason portfolio. I think my overall feel for the division in terms of trending up, trending down, Bills under, Dolphins, Jets over, Patriots very neutral. Not sure. Probably not a team I would bet on pre-flop. Too
Yeah.
much uncertainty. Belichick, I can't get a feel for Belichick. I think Dolphins, Jets, arrow up, Bills, arrow down, and Patriots, just one of these emojis.
Yeah. Yeah, Miami is so fascinating to me because I love their roster.
Oh, stacked. and they get
So
Jalen
good.
Ramsey.
Yeah.
Like they've got the glow up. Like
Yeah.
they've got it all.
And then also, if you think of like, first you want to win your division, but then if you're Miami, you're looking at the conference, you're saying to yourself like, man, we got to worry about Higgins and Chase. We got to worry about
Vic Fangio too.
We got to worry about.
Let's be honest, that Dolphins defense was a disaster last year. Now they bring in Vic Fangio, they get Ramsey. The defense will look very different this year.
But getting the two corners now, you're looking at the AFC landscape. You got Williams and Keenan.
Yep.
You got Odell now and the rookie that they drafted,
AFC's
Bateman.
the best conference. It's not even close. Trying to pick a winner in the AFC is like trying to pick a winner in the Derby. Very hard to do.
Dude, I know.
Very
I wish like the Broncos and Chargers were in the NFC. It'd make it a lot easier to make those decisions.
That's the beauty of the NFL, though. There's value on the other side. If you think one of those teams is going to win the Super Bowl or make it to the Super Bowl, because if they're in, like, it's easier to get. There's one conference that is way easier.
Yeah.
So getting that team to the Super Bowl at the pre-flop stage, well, then you can do anything once you get to the Super Bowl. You come off of it, you can try to middle it, whatever the odds are, whatever here, but way easier to bet on futures in the NFC for sure.
I mean, dude, everything inside me tells me to fade the Eagles. Like historically, losing the Super Bowl hangover, the entire division got better.
The winner,
but then
usually struggles in the Super Bowl. The loser does poorly too.
Yeah,
I didn't know that trend. I'll have to look at that one.
And then
it's possible.
And if you're looking at it like, I know we're talking about the NFC East now, but with the Eagles,
it's going off the rails here.
But it's controlled chaos.
None of it
Controlled
matters.
chaos.
None of it matters.
But dude, if you think about it, right? Like historically, I'm always gonna, like I downgraded the Bengals a little bit last year coming into the year, and through September, it's like, oh, they're 2-2, barely squeaking by. It looked good, right? Obviously, they go all the way to AFC title.
Yeah.
But you're looking at the NFC being so bad, to your point, where it's like, man, Eagles lose both their coordinators. They lose some pieces on defense. But then you're looking at the roster.
Coordinators matter a lot.
Yeah.
Early in the season.
Right.
Whereas maybe it won't matter as much later in the year. Lose both coordinators?
Yeah. But then you're looking at the conference that has so many question marks. And you're like, there's only one team that we know for a fact is going to be elite in the NFC, and it's Philly. Just from the roster standpoint.
I think if San Francisco gets that quarterback situation,
the quarterback
they're
situation,
be so filthy again. Shanahan is just a wizard. He's great in the preseason and in the regular season too. I think the North. I think the Lions have some upside. I do. I know everyone's on them. That's fine. I think they have upside. I think they figured it out. They wouldn't have drafted Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round if they didn't think they had upside this year. That is a pick you make when you think you're one player away.
Yeah.
They brought back Ben Johnson, and I know Jared Goff is going to make a lot of jokes, but hey, almost won an MVP, went to a Super Bowl,
and
had
probably
an unbelievable year.
Probably
and they bring back everybody, including the offensive line.
The fifth best quarterback in the conference too. That's how bad it is.
100%.
Yeah.
And you lose a conference that just lost Aaron Rodgers, a division that just lost Aaron Rodgers. So the NFC, I think, is a much easier conference to handicap. The AFC is the Titans, not the Tennessee Titans, but like the clash of the Titans. Just heavyweight after heavyweight, just like the AFC East. I could see the Bills having a down year and Tua and Rodgers battle it out all year. I could absolutely see that scenario playing out. Or I could see a scenario where the Bills just have a dominant roster. Tua gets hurt, Rodgers gets hurt, Patriots are neutral, very mediocre, super mid, as you would like to call Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
And Buffalo's 13-4 again, and we'll see a number one seed. A lot of scenarios could play out in that way.
Yeah. And I believe that the AFC has the additional home game this year.
Good to know.
Because the Jets, I made the case, so obviously the biggest addition is probably Rodgers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt. Like, let's not get crazy. Let's not try to get too cute.
No.
He comes over. But here's the thing that I've been saying. And you're a Jets fan, so this is perfect to ask you this. Them being 15-1 to win the Super Bowl is a bad line.
Terrible.
Why not wait until after week 6? Because the first 6 games are, holy shit, look what we're playing.
But what if they win?
Are they, though?
I don't know, but
right. Like, devil's advocate.
You owe, like, the futures market. The reason why the futures market's a lot harder than like a game is because it's like the multiverse, bro. One
I like this
scenario creates a whole nother realm of reality.
Yeah.
So right now the narrative is Jets are overbaked, overvalued, tough schedule to open. That's all I hear. Every radio network, tough schedule. And it is a tough schedule.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dodge that. But from a gambling perspective, the other reality is, well, if it's a 4-2 start against Buffalo, Dallas, New England, Kansas City, Denver, Philly, if it's 4-2 there, well, then 15-1 is a cheap price.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that they're going to win those games, but at 15-1, if you start the season hot with Aaron Rodgers and you beat
those teams,
the teams I just mentioned, 15-1 feels like a steal.
Ooh, this is the best case anyone's made.
So, like, that to me is where, now, this is where, like I said in the prior spot, the recommendation is about what you're in the mood to eat. Are you in the mood to eat fast food right now? If you're in the mood to eat fast food, well, then you take 15-1.
Yeah.
Quick and easy, done. I'll see you in a month, 2 months. All right. Can I pick the spot where they lose? Can I time the market? That's where the fine dining element comes in. You might lose in the long run. You might lose equity. I think they win week 1, Buffalo. I do. I think they beat Buffalo week 1. Home division dogs week 1. So
that's the Monday night game too.
I think they beat Buffalo week 1. Buffalo's trending down to me. And you know, you're gonna the biggest loss in the division. It didn't happen this year. It happened 2 years ago. It's Brian Dable. That was the biggest loss in the division.
Easily.
Not even close. Easily. There's not another loss that has happened in the division since he left that you could say that changed the landscape of the next 5 years of this division. If he stays and ascends to the head coaching job in Buffalo, the Bills are the Giants with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But now I think they're trending down. Ken Dorsey, McDermott has to now be the defensive coordinator and head coach. Already problems in the locker room.
And also, like, their secondary is getting older. For so long, we were praising the two guys in the secondary, Pryor and Hyde.
I don't like McDermott having to be the head coach and the DC.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all. Not at the stage that he's at in his career. He should be taking things off of his plate so he can manage the game more.
Dude, halfway through the year last year, when the Giants were going on these runs and they were like 7-1, and Josh Allen had a really good season, but it wasn't the holy shit Josh Allen.
Look at the turnover-worthy plays.
The turnover.
Well, you see Ken Dorsey in the booth slamming shit.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The relationships there, you want to talk about the Nuggets, team chemistry? It's the opposite in Buffalo. You saw at the end of that playoff game. Diggs already having problems before the season even starts.
Oh.
What happens when the adversity hits?
And Diggs was on Uninterrupted, the shop, and he was saying how, every year since I got there, we're trending backwards.
He's right.
Yeah. Year 1, they go to the AFC title game.
He's right.
Year 2, they lose. Year 3, they lose.
But here's the thing. Just because he's right doesn't mean you come out and say it. That stays in the locker. Now, I don't know. Again, this is like the same thing with DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know what's going on in the locker room there. I'm not going to claim to be this big insider that understands. You have Schefter tweeting out that he is showing up. You have him tweeting out that he's not. McDermott's concerned, then he's there. You're trying to predict what's going on inside their minds. You're crazy.
Yeah, good luck.
React to what you see and absorb it. The best player, second best player on the best team in the division is saying, we're trending down. Okay, listen to him.
Yeah.
He's probably right. Now, does that mean that they can't win? No, of course. They can win, but they're being projected to win at a certain pace. Probably not the pace that they feel, or at least they're capable of. That's my vibe with Buffalo right now. They're probably a good team, probably make the playoffs. Are they a 13-win team again this year? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Because I think the division got better.
100%.
I think, obviously, we know about the conference, and they're trending down. I think those are all just red flags.
Brian Dable is big, right? When a big coach leaves a college program, the next year, usually okay. Recruits are still there.
Yeah.
Takes a couple years. The scheme, the message really leaves. It's like when it's like a stink bomb. It takes a little while for it to waft out. The messaging inside the building. It's been a couple years now of Ken Dorsey leading the charge, who again, nice little college career at Miami, but not someone, when you watch Buffalo play, that has the same level of efficiency with how he calls the game.
And if you think about it with Josh Allen, all those terrible turnovers, he had
Awful.
four straight weeks. He had a red zone turnover.
To force it because he knows if I don't make this play, I don't trust the guy in the booth to call the next play right. That seeps down into the messaging of the team when you're calling the play.
Where you have Josh Allen, who was protecting the football with Dable, and then Daniel Jones, who wasn't protecting the football.
Look at Daniel Jones now.
He swaps, and you start seeing this happen. In the sense
Dable,
of protecting the ball. I'm not saying that Daniel Jones is better than Josh Allen. I'm not crazy.
I'll be honest, they're getting a lot closer than they were a couple years ago.
It's at least a conversation to have. Where
I
in the
don't
past
feel
it
negative
was,
about the. Let's just leave it at this. When I talk about the Giants now, to me, the quarterback is not a question anymore. I know he can play because I trust Dable to put him in the right place. Man, I'll tell you what. You go look at the Giants' schedule last year. And I know you're a big Giant. You go look at some of those wins. Impressive stuff.
Coach wins. Though.
Tight games.
Yeah.
Look at the second halves.
Yeah.
Go look at the second half against the Packers. I mean, and I know the Packers didn't end up making the playoffs, but they were close. They were a good team last year with a great quarterback. I mean, it was just the adjustments that were made.
The best.
That's how you win in the NFL. It's margins, right? Al Pacino, game of inches.
Mm-hmm.
I trust Brian Dable's ruler a lot more than I trust Ken Dorsey's ruler. Mike McDaniel's another guy that I'm interested in trusting. That's another interesting candidate for the glow up, right?
Yeah. I feel as if Miami, obviously their big addition was Jalen Ramsey as well. But what do you think of Gesicki leaving? Because that's like addition by subtraction, no?
Tight ends aren't a big needle mover for me. When you're talking about
tight end specific.
Well, Gesicki, is Gesicki that guy? Like, to me, I don't view the Dolphins any different because Gesicki's not there.
Okay, that's fair. Because I was going to say, like, if a Mark Andrews or
Travis
Kelsey aren't there.
Fair.
Yeah.
Those are transcendent players.
So player specific as opposed to position.
Exactly.
Okay.
100%. Thank you
fair.
for that clarification. I think when I look at teams, the battery matters more. For example, the Jets, Nathaniel Hackett now. The Bills, Ken Dorsey. You think about who's in the ear of the guy that's making the most important play. Do you trust that voice? I trust the Hackett-Rodgers connection. I think that's going to be a positive connection. Mike McDaniel and Tua, I think that's a positive connection. I think he gets it. I think he gets the most out of Tua. I don't feel that way about Buffalo. I have no idea what to expect in New England. That's why New England's the shrug emoji. Bill O'Brien could have a very positive impact on Mac Jones. They didn't have an offensive coordinator last year. It was a disaster. It's hard to judge Mac Jones on last year. He didn't have a voice in his ear. It was Matt Patricia. He's the defensive coordinator. It's weird.
Very weird.
Strange.
From the beginning, it was just red flag after red flag.
So it's hard to grade, right? Like, for example, you had a really crazy meal last night, woke up feeling squirrely. It's hard to grade your workout time that day. You're like, give it a pass. Like, I was a little sluggish today.
Yeah, from the night before.
Like, I give the Pats a pass because I think, again, culture, right? The way they're constructed, the little things that they do, defense, special teams. There's more margin for error with them on offense. I feel the same way about the Jets. I think there's more margin for error with them with Aaron Rodgers early in the season because I think people forget they have top 5 defense. Sauce Gardner's the best corner in the league.
Yeah.
So, like, they have margin for error. I think the Bills have a little bit. McDermott, they're the defense. The Dolphins have the least amount of margin for error. But Fangio, Ramsey, the cornerback duos maybe play a little better. Maybe that margin for error is decreasing. But it's a quarterback coach league in football, right? Like, those are the things that drive it. Dorsey, Allen, I don't feel the same way I do about them than I did last year.
What's really cool about this division is there's 2 guys that became head coaches. It didn't pan out, but I think are great coordinators, Fangio and Hackett.
Vic Fangio is incredibly talented.
Amazing.
At defense.
Oh, yeah.
I think you will see the biggest jump in PFF grades, right? The Dolphins were like
at the bottom.
Poverty last year.
Yeah, it was rough.
You will see them in the top half in most this year, I think. Yeah. Maybe not, but maybe they won't be a top 10 defense.
But they don't need to be.
They don't need to be.
Dude, I've always made this case where if you're the 31st worst defense and you end up going to 18th, dude, that's a big jump for you, especially if your offense is good. That is significant. So if that's what they could do in Miami,
had a top 5 offense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you don't need them to be a top 5 defense. You don't need them to be a top 12 defense. Get to the teens. And then the jump is going to be like, oh my God, look at Miami. Yeah.
Honestly, that's the best place to start for handicapping any team in the offseason. We don't know what these teams are right now. You're formulating ideas and strategies based off of where you expect the team to be. For example, most professional bettors that I ask, after 2 weeks, maybe 3, their prior numbers from the preseason in the summer,
Out the
gone.
window. Yep.
So why are you spending months, June, July, August, creating these prior ratings if in 3 weeks they're gone, sometimes 2? You formulate ideas. These are the scenarios that I see, positive and negative. And if you see less positive, more negative, well, then maybe an underwin total. More positive, less negative, maybe an overwin total. But also the schedule being balanced matters.
It's also very subjective to how you think those teams are going to
100%.
do too, because
Oh,
we're
there's always
basing
opinion at the end of the day.
right.
Yeah,
But
there's always
we're also
opinion.
basing, back to your point, we're basing all our input for week 1, 2, and 3 on what we saw 9 months ago.
Absurdity. And
A lot of shit
preseason
has changed.
and preseason where coaches come out and say John Harbaugh in a preseason game once came out and said, I'm going to run the ball, I think it was 10 or 15 or 20 straight times, just because we needed to work on this scheme.
And they did.
How could you take that and apply it to week 1 of an NFL game?
Yeah.
It's like saying, I'm going to go run a mile today, and based on my time and score, you're going to let me know how I do doing a sit-up contest. Completely different things. You might run a mile faster than anyone in the world, but you might have core or pull-up contest. You might have scrawny arms.
Yeah.
It's absurd. Like the preseason, there are betting angles in the preseason that are great. You have to be very attentive to the news, who plays. But to take anything in the preseason and to apply it to the regular season is a mistake. That's why week 1 in the NFL is the hardest week to bet, period. Even harder than week 18 when they rest starters, I think. I think week 1 is the hardest week of any season in any sport to bet.
Yeah, because you're basing it, like we said, from
Off of
8 months
nothing.
ago.
At
Yeah.
least in week 2, you don't have a lot of data, but you get the overreaction, and then you come back on the other side. In week 1, there's no reaction, unless there's some big news that breaks during the week, which you cannot take account.
And it's also like I'm very high on Pittsburgh coming into the year. So I've been looking at them catching 3.5 points against the Niners in week 1, where Sam Darnold as a road favorite. So
It's a tough one.
But it's one of those things where subjective. I
Some
don't know
people
how
are really high on the Niners.
right, and I don't know if you're high on Pittsburgh. Maybe you're
I like
like, oh,
Pittsburgh.
dude, yeah. But for this
Yeah.
example, maybe you're like, oh, bro, they should be a 10-point dog at home. They suck.
Yeah. Usually, that's why the NFL is the best.
Mm,
Lines are never that wrong.
yeah.
If they're wrong by a point. And they correct very quickly because it is a market that the entire universe swims in. The biggest syndicates, like the biggest groups on the planet that bet NFL.
Yep.
And they bet it big. Why? Limits are the highest. They can get the most liquid. They can get the most liquidity in. Makes sense, right? Can't get liquidity in on an Nerfy. Bet $500, they move the line 50 cents.
Yeah.
What's the point in that?
But you also think it's because it's popular, like you said,
What,
with
the
the
Nerfy
markets?
or the
no.
NFL?
Like,
It's
if
both. See, that's so it's the perfect storm. Nerfy's a popular market, but most of the bets are for $50 or $100.
Got
So
it.
doesn't move the needle. The NFL is the most popular bet. They have the most $50, $100 bets, but they also have the $100,000 bets. Those don't exist in most of the other gambling markets. There's only certain markets that accept that kind of money,
Yeah.
unless it's offshore, which is unregulated, which is again a whole other
Right,
animal.
right.
But the best, most efficient market where you can get the most down in is the NFL.
NFL.
So that's why the biggest syndicates attack the NFL. But here's the thing, and this is what I'm hearing from a lot of pros too. The timing of a lot of the offshore syndicates are weird now, so the markets are moving on Wednesdays. Usually the limits expand later in the week. Friday, Saturday is when the syndicates used to really bet into these markets. Now it's happening on like Tuesday, Wednesday. So
Sharps coming in
the
on
markets
Wednesday,
are just, these are, I'll be honest, the NFL, that's why it's just, hold on for dear life, man. Every week.
yeah.
Props have become a nice avenue. Those props don't drop till later in the week usually. The limits are low, doesn't get as much professional attention. It's mostly driven by social media. Smaller bets. Those are, to me, the most fun NFL wagers. First touchdowns, right? Those are good sweats.
Yeah. Anytime touchdown, too.
Great sweats.
What would you say is the biggest X factor in this division that's not like an obvious name?
Like an Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I think it's the mesh in New England. Because let's be honest, that's the one team that I really don't have a feel for.
Yeah.
That's the one team that could.
Dude, I think they're going to be bad this year, man.
They could very well be 4-13.
Yeah.
But would you be shocked if Mac Jones became Tom Brady light, just putting it everywhere? Not very flashy, but they ran the ball, good offensive line, great special teams, great defense. Their offense is slightly more efficient than last year because Bill O'Brien's an actual coordinator who, for all of his warts, can call a game.
Yeah.
The upside could be 11-5 and a playoff team. I don't have the same variance with the other three teams, barring injury, of course.
Right.
But let's say all four teams have their quarterback, Jones, Tua, Allen, and Rodgers, for the whole season.
Yeah.
To me, the window of victories for Buffalo, probably between like 9 and 13, right?
I see what you're saying, where New England probably has the widest range of outcomes.
I could see 4 wins, and yeah, they suck.
Yeah.
But would you really be that shocked if Belichick pulled a rabbit out of his hat, got the most out of the roster? They get Hopkins. Now they have a receiver. Mac Jones is just above mediocre. Bill O'Brien sparks it. They always can run the ball. They always play defense and special teams. Would you be shocked that they're 11-5 or 12-4 or 12-5, 11-6? Right?
Yeah.
The new numbers always get me. No, that's like an 8-win window right there. Whereas the Jets, I see the Jets as like an 8 to 10, 11 win team. Dolphins, 8 to 10, 11 wins. I don't see a Dolphins 12-5 or 13-4.
Right.
Maybe.
You
Outlier.
also don't see a 4-13 for Miami.
No.
They have too much talent.
No, they're I think the Jets and the Dolphins are 500 teams at worst.
Yeah.
I think that's the floor with their talent. The Bills are at worst probably a 9 or 10 win team, you would think, with their talent. The Patriots? No idea. I would say Bill O'Brien's the biggest X factor in the division this year. What impact does he have on Mac Jones? If it's insanely positive, I could see the Patriots making the playoffs or making a run at the playoffs. But obviously, they have the lowest floor as well, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. One number that stood out to me, made a video about this a couple weeks ago, is they're 30-1 to have the number 1 pick next year.
Interesting. Probably Arizona's got to be at the top of that list.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Arizona is so bad. They're
Forget about
so
it.
bad.
It's to me, I think those markets are really, really tough.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the season, for example, you needed like a million things to go your way for the Texans to be out of that pick.
Oh, yeah.
First, they had to win, and then they needed everything else to go well, right, the week before. Those are really tough.
Those are tough. Yeah,
those are tough. Markets.
It was just
I would
one
just
that,
rather bet the under on New England win total than bet something like that. Because to me, that's a more solid investment that I know I'm getting value with throughout the entire year because it's a market that I trust without a absurd hold percentage. Any market that has more than 2 outcomes, the sports books that we bet into, they don't really give us a fair price.
Yeah.
Even the bets with 2 outcomes sometimes aren't fair. But the 10 outcome result bets, I mean, I've seen some stuff on some of the books that are just like 25, 30, 40% hold percentages.
They love
it's ridiculous.
They love first touchdown scores.
Oh.
They'll take that all day. So how much you want to put? No problem. Take it.
Here's the best example of what the sports books want you to bet. What are they advertising? SGPs, first touchdown insurance, right?
Yeah.
Overtime insurance. Although in the playoffs it's a good bet, but in the regular season it's a terrible bet for hockey. I think those are easy indicators for the rookie. Boost could be good if you are using them properly. Because I think people like to boost parlays. You shouldn't. You should boost straight bets. If I'm getting a -110 at a +110,
massive difference. Oh, yeah.
47 to 52%. It's huge. I mean, that's a bigger impact than +800 to +900, which is like 1.5%, you know, in terms of your win probability.
Does it ever upset you when you're on a bet and then you see that it's been boosted and now the public is on it?
I don't even pay attention to those.
No?
Because here in Vegas, we don't get any of that.
That's fair.
I mean,
unfortunately,
I am that was the biggest adjustment for me moving out here. I will have one complaint about Las Vegas. It's a tough town to bet sports in.
Who would have thought?
Easy town to bet everything else in. Tough town to bet sports in.
The first weekend that I came to Vegas, was the UFC pay-per-view with Nate Diaz and Chimaev when it got all fumbled around. Guys were missing weight, so there was like a makeshift card. I remember I called my mom, and I was like, "Mom, I need you to open up my FanDuel account. I need you to put these bets."
I do that all the time, by the way. I have a friend back east. He does it for me.
And she's like, "Nick."
I drive to Arizona sometimes, too.
Yeah, I noticed how short of a drive it is.
30 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be doing that too.
Oh, yeah.
But before I knew about the Arizona trip, Jared, I called my mom, and she's like, "Baby, why am I putting bets for you? You're in Vegas."
I know.
I was like, "It's the shittiest place to bet."
Can't bet anything.
Can't.
No, exaggerate. I'm embellishing. You can bet things. You have to sign up for the apps in person.
Yeah.
My first week in town, I drove around to every sports book in the city.
Yeah, I did that too.
The apps are a little glitchy.
They're always glitchy when you need them too, right? Like
the live offerings,
just the timing of it is amazing.
The live offerings are very hard to
Yeah.
bet. For other reasons too. The streaming situation makes it hard to bet live anymore. But there's just not as many offerings. And the props, forget it. Thank God the Nerfies exist. Multiple sports books do very fair Nerfy offerings. That's why I've really invested a lot of time in that market in baseball season, because it's very available here, and it's not heavily bet. It's actually, I think it's the best kept secret in town, the Nerfies. Yeah.
That's your shit, right?
Bro, these bets have taken over my life. Well, like think about it from like a fandom perspective first. Baseball is tough to watch. And I know the new rules make it easier, but it's still tough to watch.
Yeah.
And it's every day. It's a grind. Who wants to dedicate? So I dedicate usually 2 to 3 hours handicapping every day, even if I'm not on a show. I am handicapping sports at least 2 hours every day, regardless if I'm doing a show or not. So I spend 2 hours, 3 hours handicapping. Then I have to spend 4 hours, 5 hours, the window, right? Sometimes there's day games, 8, 10 hours, watching 3-hour games, more like 2.5 now. There's too many games.
Yeah.
So the first inning, it's quantifiable. I think it's the most quantifiable of all the wagers because it's 1, 2, 3 in the order, top pitcher. You know exactly the sequence. In the third inning, who knows? It could be up. And it's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Done. I watch it. All right, let's go out for dinner.
Yeah.
Done. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, done. Like, it's very gratifying to get that instant return or demise, depending on how it goes. So, the Nerfies are they're a blast, man. They're a freaking blast.
Dude, I want to wrap up this conversation by mentioning what I think the biggest X factor is going to be in this division. And
yeah, we went off the
Yeah,
rails.
and to me, the craziest thing is I know I told you not to pick something obvious, but
Are you gonna go obvious here?
I'm gonna go obvious, but I'm gonna paint a picture for just a longevity standpoint too. I think it's Tua's health. Obviously, we know what it means for him and this team, and what he means to this team. But dude, it was a really scary 3-week stretch that he went through this year, and especially when he got hit and he just did that like
it's a weird season with injuries.
Yeah, and you had him play Sunday, and then he played on Thursday, and you're like, holy shit! And then the visual, like, cameraman, what are we doing? Just keeping that on there. It looked so bad.
Such a weird year with injuries. You wish him the best. I think it looks like he's a little healthier though.
Yeah, he's been at like those Panther games too. He looks very lively, even in some of the videos you see of him.
But it changes when you get hit. Like it's just that's why the NFL's tough, man. It's such an attrition sport, unlike any other league.
And look, to bring fighting into this, they say how everyone has a good chin until they don't, right? Yeah, of course. And then eventually it's like,
everyone has a plan and they get knocked out.
Yeah, but then it's you could be a guy that never got knocked out, and then you get knocked out that one time, and then it's like a jab.
Yeah.
Going backwards.
Flash Joe over here.
Yeah. Now you're stunned and you lose a fight. Where Tua didn't have these concussion issues, where now it's every time. If you're a Dolphins fan, especially if you bet on them too, but if you're watching a Tua Dolphins game and he gets hit, you're gonna be doing one of those.
Unfortunately, there's no way to predict that stuff.
No, there isn't.
I think the injuries, and you see it all the time on social media. Void this prop, they got hurt. That's gambling.
Yeah.
Like that needs to be factored into your mental equation of how you project the team to play.
And also what we were just talking about with the knockout thing, it's the same thing where like a player might be steady Iron Man 6 years in a row, and then he gets that first injury, and now
That's
he's
it.
injury prone.
I think injuries is the hardest thing to even talk about in our space because there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
And I think, for example,
Have you ever been tipped by someone that a player is hurt?
I think there's a
Maybe
lot
like
of,
a beat writer, and then it turns out like he has a career game.
So there are some people in the space that usually get ahead of the news. And yeah, I have been tipped off either directly or indirectly before by odds makers, friends, people that are in the know.
Right.
Then the odds move.
Mm.
But once the odds move, you have to then make a separate assessment based off of did they move too much? For example, when Rodgers went out a couple years ago and they put Jordan Love in that game against the Chiefs and they went from, I think, like a pick 'em to like an 8-point dog. Well, that changes the win probability completely.
Yep.
So sometimes it's better just to wait. You know the news is going to drop. Well, the public tends to overreact. In the NFL, if it's an NFL injury to a major player,
oh, dude.
I would prefer to wait.
My favorite spot of last
And then
season.
get at the other side after it moves too much.
My favorite spot from last season was week 1, Dak gets hurt. And then the Cooper Rush comes in against the Bengals.
Stud.
The look-ahead line before the Sunday night game was Dallas was a pick at home against the Bengals.
Yeah.
And then Dak gets ruled out, and it went up to 8. And I was like, dude, we've seen Cooper Rush.
What was the game they got blown out? They got blown out in a game, too, with him. But they also had a really good good game.
But that was like the tail end of it. Because he started off hot.
Yeah.
But Cooper Rush, it's like, all right, yeah, we know Dak got hurt, but I didn't feel like, again, subjective. I love bringing that up in sports betting because I think it's really true.
Very subjective.
I don't think the drop-off between that quarterback and the other was what the line showed us.
That, to me, is...
And then the Bengals ended up losing that game outright.
They won. Yeah, that's right. Wow. Yeah, because he got hurt week 1 against Tampa. Weird season, man. That feels like 10 years ago.
I know.
To me, the NFL, so if I ever got a tip about a quarterback like that, I would probably bet it, but then I would probably come back and bet the other side and try to middle.
Oh.
Like that to me, and I've done that before too. I did that on a Cleveland Monday night game a few years ago when they had your Jacoby Brissett injury thing. I forget who the backup was, or who the starter was that he came in for, but a very similar situation. It might have been Baker Mayfield. That might have been the Baker year 2 years ago when Baker was still there. The NFL lines, they move too much when the injuries happen because the public eats it up.
Yeah.
They'll bet it, and it'll move too much. And then eventually it always reaches that point that you come back on the other side. That's when you know it moved too much.
Yep.
When it starts to drift back. So I think injuries often open up an opportunity to bet the other side. Not every situation,
Right.
but case by case.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I middled a game one time.
That was the one middle I've ever had was in
And
that
I
Cleveland
felt
Cincinnati
like the
game.
man. I felt like
Wanna look
it was a
what game it
Chiefs
was.
Broncos game. The Chiefs opened up at 6.5, and then the line closed at 7.5. It was like a primetime game, and I think the score was like 27-20. Dude, I felt
Oh
like
no, it was Denver. It was Denver.
I felt like
Denver,
no one could
Cleveland.
tell me anything when that happened.
So
the one
Denver-
time I middled.
I think Cleveland. They went from Brissett to Keenum. Yeah, Keenum
Oh, so you're
started
going
for Cleveland.
further back.
Way down.
Yeah,
on the depth.
yeah,
This was
yeah.
2 years ago. 2 years ago. It was a Thursday night game. Keenum, third string quarterback, wins. The Broncos opened up, I think, as a dog. Then Keenum got announced, third string. I bet the Broncos plus. I think it was. I forget. See, now I'm like getting all confused here. I think it was. I think the the Broncos were plus 3.5 on the road in Cleveland Thursday night. I bet Broncos plus 3.5. Then Keenum gets announced the starter, flips back to the other side. The Browns close, I think, plus 2. Then I bet Broncos plus 3.5, Browns plus 2, Cleveland won by 3. Thread the needle. That's how it went down. Keenum was the third string. Remember, they had 2 backups out that week.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a COVID thing. Case Keenum stepped in for an injured Baker Mayfield. Dearness Johnson, $1.46.
Oh, dude, that was definitely a COVID thing. Dearness was like everyone's fantasy darling for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So Brissett was already hurt, and Keenum and Mayfield was out. Baker was out. And so the line went Denver plus 3.5, closed Denver plus 2. So if you got plus 3.5, and then you got Cleveland plus 2, Gucci. That's how you middle a That's how you middle a game right there.
That is. That's good times. That's good times. I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time that us two connect on a show.
I
Definitely
agree.
Once the football season starts, we'll be doing some cool, fun stuff. Thank you for spending your time. It's been about like 2 hours now that I've had you in the studio.
It's been a blast, dude.
It was great. Great to learn more about your story too, man. So much shit that, oftentimes you're friends with people and you get to know people and there's so much that you haven't untapped, right? And
Years, bro. I lived a whole nother life before I moved out here, basically.
And in conversations, you just learn a lot. So I appreciate your time, man. Let the people know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, at Jared Lee Smith on Twitter. Do a lot of gambling content most days. I have a show on Fox Sports Radio every Saturday morning, which is great too. And I work for VSiN as well. I do some shows for them. And then you follow my dog on TikTok at Pit Picks because he's putting out better. He's 6-1. Got a pick coming up soon, but dog's got better picks than me. Wink, wink. They're still my picks.
Yeah. No, they don't need to know that, man. Because like you said last time, you just blame
Behind
the dog.
the curtain.
Blame the
Well,
dog.
that's the thing. The dog's the scapegoat. If it loses, it's the dog. But if it wins, then I'm the brainchild.
Let's go.
That's how it works, right?
I love it. At Nick Dais 10 is where you can find me. All things Veterans Minimum is at Veterans Minimum. And please go and check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Veterans Minimum. You get a lot of cool perks, merch giveaways every month. We have discounts to the merch store. And then we also have shout outs, roll call, free items when you sign up for a year pledge and the whole nine. Go check it out, patreon.com/Veterans Minimum. And we'll catch you guys next time on Veterans Minimum.